apply in the rounds because that's kind of the most pertinent thing at the moment. But the other way that you can get a scholarship is if a supervisor or a project has some funding that they're able to access, and they might put out a scholarship as well. So you've got, I guess, two major types of scholarships. The first is a major scholarship that kind of covers mostly enough funding to sort of support you for your living and things like that while you're doing a scholarship, and then doing your studies. But also we have what's called supplementary scholarship, which if you have a major scholarship can add some extra funding on top of that. So I think it's probably best if we have a look at our website. If you're interested in scholarships and getting a bit of money to help you while you're doing your studies, I would suggest that you have a look at our website. It's actually got a lot of information. But as well as that, like, don't get overwhelmed as is usual with university websites. I've yet to come across one that's not very information heavy and quite can be quite difficult to navigate. So kind of get familiar and don't freak out when you first get there. So this is our scholarships page. So if you are looking for any information about scholarships, we have the Research Scholarships database, which if I click into, you can then have a look at any of our postgraduate scholarships. So if you had a scholarship or were interested in scholarships in your undergrad, it's the same database, so you should be used to having a look around it, but you can look into and click on any of these scholarships and see what the eligibility criteria is, and also what it's going to give you when you get the scholarship, or if you get the scholarship, and how to apply is the big one. So if we go back to our scholarships page, we also have some info. Oh, I've gone too far, everybody. Here we go. So this is the main scholarships page. We have information for domestic applicants and for international applicants. If we click on these, it'll tell us about the rounds that are open at the moment. So at the moment, we have the major round, which is open now, and it closes on the 31st of October. There are two main types of scholarships available in the round. So the first lot are the University of Adelaide Research Scholarships and the the RTPS, the Research Training Program Stipend. I'm not used to using the entire terminology there. You can apply for this at the moment if you are a domestic student, or if you're an international student who's studied at the University of Adelaide and finished within the last 4 semesters. So there are two ways that I'm going to take you through applying, basically. But if you click on these, they'll give you information about when the applications are open, what is covered, who is covered as, who is eligible is what I'm trying to say, and a link to the conditions of award. So if you're a little bit unsure about whether or not you're eligible for the scholarship, or you want to know what's included in it, always consult the conditions of award, and it will tell you a bit more about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through an application. This is the domestic students application. I should actually go through that. If you are an international student but you're eligible to apply, you go through the international students application, and we keep track of you behind the scenes for your application. So that's one thing to be aware of if you're domestic student versus if you're an international student. It's still the same round, but you're just going to apply through a different system, and it's all to do with, the systems that keep track of everybody. So this is what the how to apply page looks like. Tells you when it's open, tells you what scholarships are available in there. So we mainly look at the University of Adelaide Research Scholarship and the RTPS Scholarship, which is the government funded one. They pretty much, from your perspective, look the same. So it's the same amount of money, the same conditions and eligibility criteria. It's a matter of who provides the funding. So whether it's from the university or whether it's from the Australian government. But there are, that's taken us back. There are some other scholarships that are available in the round. So when we get into the system and have a look, you can see what else is available, or you can look through the database as well and see what's in there. Oh, I've missed it again, haven't I? Too quick at this. Okay, so you can check your eligibility. It gives you a bit of information. So you can either look for a Master of Philosophy, which is your 2-year degree, or you've got your Doctor of Philosophy, which is your 3-year degree. And we have scholarships that cover both of those. This kind of gives you a little bit more information about who's eligible and the scholarships page. Some information about how to find a supervisor, which I think you're probably going to cover a bit later. And then we get to the apply online section. Oh, that's international. Where is our domestic round? So I'm going to go through the domestic system and show you through so you can have a look. It's really not scary. The international system is pretty much the same. It just looks a little bit different. Like it's, I think, slightly different colors and might ask a few different questions, but it's pretty much the same. So I'm just going to put in my okay. So I'm actually just looking at the for the Zoom chat. But basically, this is we can come in a little bit different. This is if you've already started your application. So I've started filling this in so we can go through a bit quicker. But if I go to, where is the continue my application, it will say start my application. I think that's the big difference here. And I just wanted to go out and somewhere it says, and I did look at this on my computer and oh, that's because I've gone to the end. That's what the issue is. If you go to the person profiles page, this is where it'll take you originally. Gee, there. Sorry. Yeah. Still trying to. Do you want me to? Still trying to get a message. Same place so everyone can see at the same time. Testing. Application. Try that. Sure. Hello? I got you. Let's try. Maybe logging on to the front. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't say you cannot yet. Exactly. All right. Yes. So if we go to continue my application for those that are watching on Zoom, then we've got the application to, just because I've gone to the end. Okay, so I've finished through. That's all. The only reason you've come to the end here, and then go to this one here. Okay, so this is stuff that you should all be able to fill in quite easily. It's just information about yourself, citizenship, all that sort of stuff. Then you go down to save my profile, and you kind of get started. And then you'll always come back to this section when you come back and revisit this. So what you can do is you can do bits and save it and go away and come back. And you don't have to do it all in one sitting. I know some applications sort of work out that way, and it can be very frustrating. So you can have a look, go in when you've got a bit of time and just have a little play around, and you'll find that it's actually not too bad. So if we go to the application type, it asks about the different types of applications. If basically going to be doing admission and scholarship. If you've already started studying, you can do scholarship only. So if you've already enrolled and want to go in and get it, apply for scholarship that way, it's not really recommended that you do that, but you can. Admission and scholarship is the main one. And then if you know that you've got, for example, a scholarship that's being established through your supervisor through the project that you're working on, you might apply for admission only because you know you've got a scholarship already, and it might be better than what's on offer through a UARS or an RTPS. So that would be the only reason you would tick application only. If you get admission and scholarship and you make a mistake, we can always work it out behind the scenes in the system. So don't stress too much, basically. The other thing I want to point out is up here in the right-hand corner. So there's a help button. It's not so much on this one. It's you know, there's not much that you're going to question on this, but as you go through, if you've got any questions, that's kind of the first place to start. I know it seems obvious, but when you're sitting on your own, trying to do an application, especially if you've left it to the last minute, if you're like me, that's when you start panicking. So have a look at the help. It should help you answer your questions. If we go through, you can add your study preferences. So if you've got maybe two projects that you want to look at, or two different degrees, you might be able to go through arts, or you might be able to go through maybe a science, depending on what you're looking at studying. So that's why you would put different study preferences. Or you might have a Doctor of Philosophy as your main preference and a Master's fees for your second preference. You can do up to 3 preferences. But for example, if we add a Master's, just click through, choose the option you want. Let's go for a Master of Philosophy and pretend we're doing music. And then you can say which school you're through and which program. And then next, and it'll add it to the bottom. So it's pretty simple adding things through that way. If you're looking to do a joint award, so if you're looking to study through, for example, the University of Adelaide and the University of Nottingham, we've got some universities that we have agreements with where you can study through both. That would be where you put this information. Again, help tells you a little bit more about the rules for those, and provides you some information up in the corner. But I'm just going to go ahead and say no for this one. This is where you would put in whether you want to study full-time, part-time. For scholarships purposes, you can only study part-time if you have caring responsibilities or a medical reason. Otherwise, you need to study full-time with a scholarship. But if you're choosing to study without scholarship, then of course you can choose either. Same, usually you would have to study internally, but you can obviously click either if you're not looking at a scholarship. Intended start date. I'll go through. These are all the scholarships. Yep.
Is there a date?
Yeah, so if you're applying, for example, in the round that's open at the moment, so the domestic major round, you have to start first semester next year.
So that's,
With higher degree research, you just have to start before the end of the
semester. So
Yeah,
is it the final date in semester? That's the
so it's like
So you
June.
need to start any time between January and June.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be really wary about starting in January unless you know your supervisors are going to be on the ground, because lots of academics take leave in January. So just double check. The other issue is if you start right at the beginning of January, you might not have an office space or a computer or anything, because often the school office, admin staff who organise all of those things aren't around. So that sort of sets you back a bit at the beginning. So talk to your supervisor about when they advise the best date to start. I know lots of people want to start on the 2nd of January because they get their scholarship money from then, but it will also cut into your candidature because the clock will start ticking then. And so you will have to finish, if you're doing an MA, 2 years after that, or a PhD 4 years after that, and you might actually lose a month at the beginning while all of those things are being sorted out. So
Yeah,
just,
definitely.
I don't know if the people on Zoom can hear me actually, but I would always recommend, you know, you can start in January as long as your supervisor is going to be there, right, you know, right with you on the 2nd of January, so you can meet up with them.
Yep. Just taking my phone. Did everyone hear that?
Is that better? Can people hear me with that or not? Yeah, I can.
So that was a really good question, actually. Yeah, so higher degree research is less constricted than undergrad. So postgraduate, you can sort of, when it comes to starting dates, is a lot more flexible. You usually fit around, as Claire was saying, your supervisor's needs or your project's needs or things like that as well. So, but it is within that first semester. Or if you apply in the mid-year round, it'd be within second semester. So any date within that time. So back to scholarship selection. So this is the list of all of the scholarships that are available this year. Some of these are supplementary scholarships. So they're scholarships that go on top of your major scholarship, and some of them are major scholarships. So I would suggest sitting down, I know it takes a bit of time, but read through them all. There's no point in, if you don't apply, you're definitely not going to get the scholarship. Obviously, don't waste your time if you're not eligible, but have a look and see if there's anything. Some of these, all you require is to have an honours degree or a master's degree, so you may as well tick it. Some of it depends on what area you're studying in. So if you're studying, I know one of these, I think, yeah, join a scholarship in law. So if you're studying law, have a look through and see if you're actually eligible for it, because as you know, you may as well give it a go. To say which ones you want to apply for, just have to tick the boxes. It might mean that you have to add something at the end when we get to where you upload documents. You might have to add a little bit more evidence or something like that, but have a look and see what you're actually eligible for, because I do know that I've been looking through a lot lately, and you know, you can sort of see that people are eligible for things that maybe they haven't ticked or whatever, so you may as well give it a go. Yeah, so you've got your, yes, oh sorry.
That means I can apply tick multiple.
Yep, so at the moment I've got the research training program scholarship ticked on my version, and I've got the University of Adelaide research scholarship. So I would, if you're going for one of them, I would go for both of those two, or if you're doing the masters, could maybe go for the Master of Philosophy, no honours, rather than those two. Yeah, so have a look through and see what.
I can tick four of them.
Yep.
So yeah,
It might.
Research scholarship, a research training program scholarship, and then George Fraser supplement scholarship.
Yep. Yep, you could definitely do that. They do get double checked, so if you've, you know, if you've ticked it and you're not eligible, it kind of it will come out in the wash. So again, don't stress out too much, but I would have a look, and you know, don't create too much work for everybody if you've had a look and checked your eligibility first. Yeah, so we'll go to the next page. Oh, there's someone just joined. Oh, sorry. Scholarship history. So this is where you add any scholarships you've had in the past. So if you've got a scholarship for your undergrad, you will put it in. I've just given myself something called the dummy scholarship. But you basically go in, you add the name, duration, what it kind of covered, and then click save. It's not going to let me do that. Don't worry. We'll just go backwards instead. And then it just sort of asks if you're currently or have previously received a postgraduate scholarship. So they want to know all the information about that. The next is just a bit of, did you get through? So scholarship history. Yeah, it's the next one. And I'm on the next one now. This is just how you found out about the scholarships. So it's just a bit of market research, basically. So I've ticked school seminar because that's where we're at today. But if you've heard about it through supervisor or through check through the website, you can click. I think we can click multiple of, yeah, click multiple of those. The next one is English proficiency. So you have to click one of the options. Again, it's not too much effort unless you've got to provide something. If you do have to, you know, say have sat the IELTS or the TOEFL test or something, then when we get to the document upload section, you would upload your evidence. Yep.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the IELTS document.
Yep.
Since I applied for Master of Education here 2 years ago, about 3 years ago, but it says like the recent IELTS document should be around 48 months.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I exceed the 48 months.
Yeah.
It's still okay to use the same IELTS
Um,
document.
You probably don't even, you could probably upload it. It's not going to hurt. But you would also, if you finished your Master of Education, you would be able to tick the top one as well, because you'll have a degree from an English speaking university. So that's a good one it's a good question, because it's a good one to point out
It'll
for
probably
people.
be okay because you're a University of Adelaide graduate, so
Yeah.
people in your area will know that your English proficiency is
Yeah,
okay.
definitely. But it's
So-
not going to hurt to have extra information. So if you've got it handy, you can always upload it. But yeah, you'll definitely have the first option too.
Is it better to say first language is English than I already have the
I don't know if it's better, but like, I don't think we can do both, but no, you can't click both. I've just had a look. I would say first language is English.
so I should go for
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is a section where you add your qualifications. So again, it's pretty user friendly. You write down whether it was an undergraduate or a postgraduate. Select from the list of, you know, is it a certificate, or is it a bachelor or associate diploma? Whatever you've got, put everything you've got in there. So if you're not sure, or if it's, you know, music, but you're wanting to study, I don't know, English, creative writing or something, put it down, like, because we can always use it in assessing what you've done. Level of honours, if it's an honours related degree, awarding institution information, and, you know, the status, so whether you're still going, whether you finished it 10 years ago, that kind of information. And again, it's all drop down boxes, so you just need the information sitting there.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? So if you're currently completing honours or you're completing a postgraduate coursework degree, say that you're currently doing it, but put it into the system, and then when your application goes through to the area for assessment, they'll be asked to predict your result, and so you'll be
Yeah.
ranked according to that prediction, but you won't be awarded a scholarship until your actual result comes through, and then that will be fed
Yeah,
into the
that's correct.
system. So don't get stressed if you haven't completed your honours degree or your current degree. Put down that you're doing it, and then the system is alerted to the fact that you need a final result for that.
So, the level of honors is, shows none, that's fine. Because,
That's fine.
Yeah.
Some degrees won't have one. Let's have a look what's in there.
The level of honors, they ask for the, division.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's only if you say you did honours last year and you've got your actual result. So
Yeah.
is there an option there for?
There isn't there's an option for none if there was no honours,
Yeah.
but I would,
No.
let's see if we can go ahead.
Pretty awful, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's,
Already say. Yet.
it'd be nice if we could, but yeah. Yep. Yeah, you could do that as well.
I'd do that. I'd
Yeah.
say currently completing. Oh, there you are. You'll get a scholarship.
Yeah, exactly. You can read instructions.
Understand
Yeah.
the form better than we do.
It should be included in that too. So it'll be
So-
caught.
But it's just when you're really unsure about, because there are so many drop boxes and you don't know where you should put things, just, you could always tick the other and explain there in the system so that you've covered all bases.
All right, so let's Oh, it's not going to let me just do that. Let's go to research experience. So in here, you need to add your ORCID number. If you don't have one, there's a link and you can go and sort of go to the website and set one up for yourself. I've just put in zeros because it's dummy, but yeah, it should look like this where you've got your 4 groups of 4 numbers. I just skipped out of it, but
The system came up, you must select none of the level of owners or
okay, there you go. It tells you what to
So
do.
then set up to answer all contingencies.
Yeah. Okay, so this also like lets you put in research experience that you've had. So it's experience outside of your studies. So if you've worked in, I guess, a lab or done some research for one of your supervisors or something that's not been part of your actual degree, then you can include that in here. I've included publications of stories, or working as a research assistant, that kind of thing. But anything you've got on your resume that you think is related to research, just a short summary in here because the next page will actually bring up more information. But so you go through and put a little summary in there. We go to, is it going to go to my next page? Yeah, research experience. And then you can put in any employment that you've had. So research assistant and any publications that you've had. Anything that's been published goes in here. So have a look through and just include it. If I click on it, it's the same as everything else. It's a drop box and, you know, write a little statement. So you've got options, conference papers, journal articles, referee publications, that kind of thing. So,
Most of you are not expected to
No.
have publications, I should point out. So don't get stressed if you don't have any at this point in time. It's
Yeah.
just in the sciences, people often work in teams and labs and they might get their name on publications. Some of you might have publications, because occasionally people in ABLE do, but it's they're not expected to. So don't feel like you're inadequate when you're doing your applications if you don't have any.
no, definitely not. And it's just for anything that you've got. Sorry. Oh, okay. Oh. The applicant has studied in University of Adelaide 1 year. If you've got the degree, I think. So if you've studied for a year. Is it?
Sorry, my glasses.
Yeah, it's tiny, isn't it? So if the applicant has studied in University of Adelaide for 1 year.
Can his English score be exempted? I don't actually know that answer. What you'll have to do is I would actually email the scholar. Is it the scholarships address?
Yeah. So research.scholarships@adelaide.edu.au.
Yeah.
So if you've got any questions, that's where I would start.
Yeah.
With that. If it's a question about going through the process and, you know, this is not working or something, take a screenshot and email it through to us. The more information you can provide us, the better, because then we can, you know, obviously provide you with a better response rather than you just tell us a bit more about it. So give us basically almost information overload in the beginning, and that'll help us out with responding. So the next one is research interests, which is where the stuff that Claire's going to go through will kind of fit in with this, but just to show you, got like little boxes where you can, yeah, Claire's going to be my supervisor.
Music.
It's going to be really interesting. But yeah, so just a little statement about your research interests, which we'll show you a bit later. This is if you've been enrolled before or if you're transferring from another university. So you would put in the boxes here. I think for most of you who are here today, it's probably not the case. But if you've got any questions about that, read your help boxes. And then if there's still got a question, feel free to contact us because we're always happy to help. Next is just referee information. So we like 2 referees. usually academic referees. Yeah, it's definitely academic referees for
I'll
this.
talk
So
about that a bit more too.
yeah, so you just put in the information. It's pretty easy to fill in. And this is the bit that I kind of wanted to get to the most. This is where you upload your, I guess, your evidence. So we're going through the domestic system at the moment. So birth certificate, I think you need to put your passport into the international system if you're going through that system, but based PDF document, and then you can just drag it across and upload it. You need to have a document for each of these things before I let you continue. So I would suggest that this is a step that maybe when you're going through and having a little play, take note of the documents that you need. So you're going to need a birth certificate. You're going to need transcripts. I've done criminology in the past in my wonderful made up career. Done everything that I didn't study at uni basically. But so you're going to need your academic transcripts. So actually you won't, because you're University of Adelaide graduate, so you won't for your Uni of Adelaide degrees, but if you have done a degree somewhere else, so maybe you've done an extra undergrad degree or something, you know, Uni of Melbourne or something like that, then you will put that in there. You need a CV. If you're going through the international section, it's got a structured CV attached. You don't actually have to follow that because it's a little daunting looking. That's for the international round basically. So you can just put a normal CV in. You don't have to use the structured if you're going through domestic.
And I'll say a bit more about what you need to put in the CV
Yeah.
when I get to my bit.
So I thought I'd just flag with you guys that if you are going through the international section, it'll ask for the structured CV. That's not necessary, but if you want to have a look at it, it does pretty much give you all the stuff that Claire's probably going to go through. It just asks for a lot of extra information. Your research proposal, which again, Claire's going to go through, but put a PDF copy of it. So have it all collated beforehand, and you can just go ahead and drop it all into the application process, and correspondence with your supervisor. So usually this is in the form of, you know, a copy of an email that your supervisor said, hey, yep, I'm happy to supervise you, but again, just drop it over. And then you're pretty much at the end, you just click next and you can review your application and go through all the information that you've just gone through. So, and the next section is to sort of sign it off and submit it. I'm not going to do that because I don't really need to go through and process my dummy application, but you know, that's fairly straightforward. The rest of it sort of, you know, just checking that you've got everything correct and then clicking through and ticking a box. So that is basically the application process. There are quite a few stages, but none of them are really all that difficult to put the information in. And I think it's probably have a little play beforehand, set up your personal details, and then get everything ready and sort of give yourself an hour and a stiff drink and put them in. Are there any questions before I finish up? Yeah.
Just double checking, so the official academic transcript.
Yep.
If I'm still in, just the, can I get official one now?
Are you doing honours here?
Yeah,
If you're
you don't
doing the
need to.
University of Adelaide degree, you don't need to provide a transcript because obviously we can access it really easily. It's only if you've done any of your degrees at another university, you'll need to provide the official transcript for them. But any University of Adelaide degrees, you don't need to provide a transcript.
But still it comes up. So I assume if I don't upload any, I can't go to the next step.
Yeah, I think I noticed. Let me have a look. If I remove my,
Did you upload
I
yours?
uploaded. Yeah, I think I uploaded my undergrad.
Yeah, so just upload what you've got. So
Yeah.
and in fact, does it have to be official? It probably doesn't have to be official.
I think it can
if
be
it's
just.
say. I think if it's University of Adelaide, actually,
You
you
can just
better
be
double
your-
check though. I don't know.
Yeah, you can get your official one like for your. So this is for your
Just your BA kind of, or
Yeah,
getting
this is-
CFIs or whatever it is degree. Is that-
Yeah, yeah, undergrad stuff
Yeah.
should be all finished.
And obviously you haven't finished your honours, so that wouldn't be added onto it, but it probably might say on it that you're completing honours.
Yeah,
this year.
I
So,
think-
so that will be evident, and you put that in the system already.
And it usually gives you sort of a predicted kind of running GPA as well with those. So
Last one.
Yep.
The correspondence with proposed principal supervisor, just the letter from.
yeah, so just an
Just an
email.
email,
It's usually
yeah.
something fairly casual. Half the time, you know what supervisors are like. Half the time it's yep, sure, cool. It's nothing. You think it should be really official. They should use some fancy language. It's usually like, yeah, cool. I'm happy for you to join me, and that'll be about it. So put that in. We can always, if it's a bit unsure, we'll always follow it up. But usually we're used to them kind of not giving some nice statement that says, yes, I'm very happy to supervise you for this project. It'll be something usually a bit more casual. Any other questions before I finish up? Feel free to send us an email or give us a call if you have any questions. Okay. So let me just get out of. I just. Phew. So you just get back. Oh, okay. I think we're. Well, thank you very much for that, Lainey. No, it was absolutely fine. And it was really good that people asked questions as you were going. And I think that's probably the way to do it. So do stop us and ask questions, because often other people are wondering the same thing, because we're not always very clear in what we say, because we know the system and we assume that everybody else does too. So just the important things for your application. I mean, really, I should have said some of these before Lainey spoke. But obviously, you need to know which discipline you're working in. Lainey's very confused. She's working in several of them. Generally speaking, you'll probably work in the discipline that you did your honours or your postgraduate coursework qualification in. Sometimes people change disciplines and move sideways slightly, but you need to make sure what discipline you're working in and the potential topic that you're going to be working on. And when you're choosing your topic, it can seem really daunting, but I think you're trying to work around, unless you've got some amazing new idea about something different that you want to work on. Often people work from what they've done during their undergraduate degrees. Sometimes people will go, I did my honours thesis on this topic, but I realised that 15,000 words wasn't enough, and there were all these other things that I wanted to explore. I'm going to develop that topic further. So just be comfortable with your topic, because you've got to write that research proposal. Don't choose a topic that you think you're going to be bored with or you're going to hate, because that will be a nightmare when you're trying to do your thesis. So you need your topic and you need to find the principal supervisor. Now, I think most of you probably know who you're going to ask to be your principal supervisor. Just be aware that some people who you might want to work with might not be able to take you on. Some supervisors are at capacity, which means that they've got so many students that they can't take on more students. But if you ask somebody to be your principal and they can't take you on, ask them to recommend a colleague or somebody else who can supervise you. So you need to find someone who knows your area and who's available to actually supervise you. Again, it's probably someone who you know from your undergraduate study. Often people go with their honours supervisors or postgraduate coursework sort of coordinators and supervisors. If you're unsure, you can follow the process that's provided on the graduate school page, where you can click on the Find a Supervisor and you can go that way. But I don't think that's really going to be relevant for most of you. Now, writing the research proposal. Now, this is really important in the sense that
you need to have some idea what it is you're going to do and have some idea about how, what's been done on that topic and how you might actually approach it so that your thesis makes a contribution to knowledge. So the research proposal situates your thesis within the existing scholarship on that topic. It explains what you want to do and why it's important. We want to know that what you're doing is actually going to be significant enough to merit PhD or MPhil research, and also the methodology that you're going to use. Now, as you'll see from my sample research proposal that I'm going to show you, that does not have to be set in concrete and really, really fancy and highly theoretical at this stage. You just really need to say, I'm going to use this particular approach because others have used it and it seems the most useful. So that's the area that sometimes students get really stressed about when they're doing their proposal. Don't. It's fairly straightforward. And also you can ask your proposed principal supervisor for help if you're really stuck when it comes to your research proposal and your methodology. It's often good to get them just to glance over it before you submit it as well. Most principal supervisors will actually do that to give you some feedback and help you tidy it up if there are a few areas that need some attention. Now, the key thing to remember about this research proposal, as I've said before, is it's not set in stone. What you say you're going to do in this proposal is not what you're going to be held to for the next 2 or 4 years. Often students will start, and even in the first few months of candidature, they'll work out that actually what they thought they were going to do in their application proposal doesn't have legs. It's not going to work. They discover that somebody that they didn't know about has just written a book on it or whatever, and they have to change it. Usually they'll only change it slightly. Some people change their topics quite dramatically, but obviously you'll need to change your topic to something that your principal supervisor can supervise. So you can't go, I want to work with Claire Walker, and then start with Claire Walker and decide that you're going to do music. I'm a historian, so I can't supervise music. So you need to work within the boundaries of your supervision. So it's not set in stone. You can actually change it. And in fact, theses are organic. They grow and change and evolve over the course of your candidature. So what you think you are going to do now will probably not be the thesis, the exact thesis and ideas that you hand in at the end. So the whole reason for the research proposal really is we want to know that you've, as I've said, that you've thought about what you're going to do, that you have adequate supervision for it, and that you understand that that you need a methodology. You need to know how you're going to conduct it, that there are sources and data and there's the facilities to actually conduct that research. So the other, and I'm about to take you through a sample proposal. Yes. Okay, so the question's about the significance for a master's as opposed to a PhD. Obviously, the master's does not necessarily have to be an original contribution to knowledge, whereas the PhD does. But with the significance, for both of them, you can say that you are revising the current literature. You think the current literature has focused too heavily on one particular angle, and you're going to look at one of the minor elements that people have referred to obliquely but not explored. So you just need to say, this is what the literature has said, and this is what I'm doing, and this is why what I'm doing is significant. You'll see how the sample application did that. So I'll talk more about that, and hopefully that will answer your question. But if you're really unsure about what to put there, either talk to your principal supervisor, or you can actually ask me sort of as well while you're doing it. So I just want to say something quickly about the CV. As Lainey said, there is a sort of a template for international applications, and we've done that for a reason. because we've had a lot of trouble with CVs, we discovered that lots of people do not know how to do a CV. You know, everybody has that standard idea for a CV that you do at school. You know, when you do PPE or whatever it is you do in year 10, and you learn how to do a CV, and they kind of just work from that template, which has, you know, hobbies, my pets, you know, where I go on holidays. We're not interested in any of that. It's really nice that you've got hobbies, that you've got pets, and you like to go to Alaska on holiday once a year. What we really want to know is the information that's pertinent to you getting a scholarship and you doing an MPhil or a PhD by research. So we want to know your qualifications, and I know you kind of have that elsewhere in the application, but you can go over those briefly. But here you can also say if you've won prizes or awards during your undergraduate degree, because I'm not sure on the other part of the application form whether there's room to put that. So anything that kind of enhances your qualifications, you can put in your CV. If you've got any publications, you can list them there. But as I said before, we don't expect applicants in ABLE to have published before they apply. Great if you have, but you don't have to. With the research experience, this is sort of, again, something that can be tricky for people. You know, most applicants have really just come out of their undergraduate degree and feel like they don't have any research experience. But sorry, I've lost my page that I'm talking to now. But if you've done a summer research scholarship, for example, if you've done one of those, put that down, because it means that you've applied for a summer research scholarship, you've been successful in your application, and you've worked with your supervisor or whoever supervised it on their research project. So that's research experience. If you've done a bit of research work for one of your lecturers when you're an undergraduate, sometimes, you know, lecturers will ask their undergrads to do some research work for them. And it's anything like that, just any evidence that you've had experience doing research at a higher level than just undergraduate essays. So don't put down your undergraduate essays. We'll know that you've done those. And then with the referees, as Lainey said, it's 2 academic referees. So don't put your employer at the supermarket or your next door neighbour who's known you since you were really small. We want references from people who can say, yes, you are capable of doing an MPhil thesis or a PhD thesis, you know, on the basis of your past performance in their courses. So lots of people will use their honours supervisor as one of their referees, and then they'll find another lecturer who they had during their undergraduate degree to write a reference for them. So make sure you get a referee who's going to, you know, who knows you and who's going to be able to say something positive about you. You don't necessarily have to go for high-ranking people, you know, the God professor who has never seen you, but you hope might write, you know, his sort of status might help your application. If he doesn't know you and he can't say anything about you, his reference will be useless. So go for people who know you and can attest to your capabilities. So are there any questions about any of that? Yes.
Regarding the referee, you mentioned it can be from one of the lectures during the undergraduate. What if I do my undergraduate degree in Indonesia?
Yeah, as long as they can write you a reference in English, that is absolutely fine. The other thing I would say is choose someone who you know is actually going to do the reference, because unfortunately, I mean, this is a busy time of year and sometimes academics are overwhelmed marking and doing a whole load of things, and we don't always get, is that true? We don't always get references. Now, at the University of Adelaide, it's usually, I mean, we know you, so, you know, we can usually find someone who knows you, because the area, so the discipline or the school will assess the application so they can follow it up, you know, if there's no reference, but it's usually good to find somebody reliable. So, you know, somebody who's been a really committed lecturer and tutor who you think, you know, is likely to be able to do it. But don't stress too much if you're getting references from Adelaide academics, and you know, you don't know whether they're going to actually provide them or not, because as I said, we can usually chase them to double check.
Is there anything like putting in reference student financial aid in order to school, you know, essentially, like,
No, because I mean, it's really people who know you. No, it's fine. Just as long as it's not someone, if you've misbehaved in some way and it's somebody who knows about that, I wouldn't ask them to but no, it's fine. So, you know, if students can ask me for references, well, if they know me, can ask me for references. So, you know, it's just whoever can you know, knows your work and can write a reference. Yes.
If PhD students consider
So if a fellow PhD student, if they've been your tutor, is that what you're thinking of? I mean, I wouldn't just get a friend who's doing a PhD, because they probably, you know, they haven't been in a supervisory role over you. But if they've been your tutor during your undergraduate degree, yes, you could get someone. So for example, Grace is doing her PhD. She tutors in my courses. And so she could actually write references for people, as long as she's marked their essays and she knows who they are. But if it's just a friend who's doing a PhD, probably not. It needs to be somebody who's taught you and knows the standard of work that you can produce. Okay, I will now move to the research proposal, and there's actually a template, and actually it's just occurred to me that does that actually appear on the system, Lainey? Because one of the things that I discovered when I was looking for it to put this together was I couldn't find the template, which I knew existed, and I finally found it under forms, but it was under current students, not future students. It might just be my useless searching of the website. But could you just double check that, and we'll let people know. But there is a template, and in fact, you'll know roughly what it is from these slides. So you could just work from the headings on these slides. But what I might do is, have you found it?
recently worked on.
Oh, okay. So it is easily found. Okay, that's okay. It was just me being useless. Actually, I couldn't get into the system though, because I was worried that if I started an application, I might go into the current round. So I didn't get too far with it. So obviously, see, that's okay. So the things that you've got to include in your research proposal are your project title, project summary, project details, research methods, and references. Now, you'll note that there's a word limit for each section, and this is so that you don't get overwhelmed and have to write oodles and oodles of words, but it's also so that it's easily readable by the people in the area who are assessing it and making sure that the proposal looks okay. So basically, the research proposal should not be longer than 1,000 words in total. Probably it should come in at a bit under 1,000 words. As I said before, it's a preliminary proposal. It does not need to cover everything. So you don't need to go and do an entire literature review, you know, of all the literature in the field. You really just need to cover the key pieces of scholarship on your topic and say a little bit about them. And you'll see in a minute what you need to do. So all you need to do is provide a brief descriptive title of your topic. Now, lots of people dream up fancy titles for their thesis topic, and it goes into the system and it sits in the system for your entire candidature, even when you've decided that the fancy, frilly title is absolutely hopeless and doesn't actually reflect what you're doing. So it's best just to have something really generic and vague, or not vague, sorry, generic and descriptive is what I meant to say, rather than dreaming up a fancy title at this stage. I think Grace can tell you, thesis topics change, they evolve over time as the thesis does. So the thesis that you submit at the end will probably not have the title on it that you put on your proposal now.
My title is last week.
Yeah,
Literally the last week is when I come to that.
yeah. So it's really not worth agonizing over. So make it fairly general. With the summary, this is really just explaining what you're doing. And I'm going to go through with an actual proposal in a minute. I just want to say a bit about this. Now, with the project details, the summary is up to 100 words. So again, it's not very long. A paragraph is all you need. For the project details, we need the background. So that's sort of what's the context of your proposed research, just a bit of introductory material. The aims, what are you planning to do? Are you going to revise, add to existing literature, investigate your topic from a new angle, use a new approach or methodology to explore a sort of well-traversed topic that lots of people have looked at in the past, but not looked at it using this methodology? There are a whole load of things that you could put there depending on what you want to do. The significance is explain the existing literature on your topic. So this is a sort of very brief lit review. So what has been written about your topic and where does your research sit within this? So this is what's been said and this is what I'm going to do. The expected outcomes, I reckon, is really hard for humanities people in particular to address, and you'll see that I couldn't actually fit that into my sample proposal because your expected outcome really is a thesis. but you might be writing a thesis by publication, so you could say 3 publications or whatever, 3 joint publications, thesis, whatever. That one I don't think is quite as essential. But if you can think of a clear outcome, definitely put it in. So the research methods is really just your methodology. If you're using a particular theoretical framework, how you're going to conduct your research. Are you going to interview people? Are you going to closely read written sources? You might not be wanting to interview people. Are you going to do quantitative analysis? Are you going to have vast amounts of data and you're going to crunch the numbers to see what they tell you? Or is it qualitative? Are you going to interview people and, interpret what they say, or read books or documents and interpret what they say? So you just need to find a methodology that's suitable for your discipline. And within our faculty, there's a whole range of methodologies. So again, I can't really be comprehensive when I'm talking about it. The references, you really just need to list the scholarly references you cite in your proposal. So it's really going to be a very short list. So don't stress too much about that. So now, there's a question.
The referee.
If someone worked as a researcher with an NGO, can the person who was heading the research? Yes. So yes, if you've worked for an NGO or a government organisation, or even in private enterprise, and you've done research as part of your job, certainly your supervisor, in that context, the person you were working with can be your academic referee. Okay, so let's move to the sample research proposal. And this is actually, I have edited it slightly and added bits to it and tailored it to this new template, because when Ben did it, we had a different research proposal template. But I'd like to thank Ben Nichols, who's a history postgrad, but he kind of was a music student as an undergrad. So I've kind of asked him if I could use his proposal because it sort of straddles music history. So his thesis topic, and I'm not sure if this is his current topic, but this is what he proposed to do at the outset, is the piano and colonisation in South Australia. And so his summary, you can see, is just one very short paragraph. So it really just says that music was important in the colonial soundscape. migrants to South Australia purchased pianos, or they brought them because they wanted to kind of feel at home. They wanted to replicate their former lives in the new colony. But obviously European music was a way to civilize this unfamiliar landscape. And so people often sort of rearranged the indigenous landscape by adding piano music, European piano music. And so the piano became part of the process of colonization and dispossession. By exploring how pianos were integrated, this thesis will provide a new insight into 19th century South Australian history. And this is because nobody has actually written about the piano in South Australian history before. So Ben was actually, or is, investigating new territory. And he started off, this is a proposed research proposal for an MPhil, because he started off doing an MPhil, but he's recently upgraded to a PhD because he realized it was a mega topic and he could do a lot more on it. So with the project details, what I've got here is I've actually shown the various parts. So I'm not going to read through it all. Amesh is going to send these slides out. So if you want to get some sense of what Ben wrote, then you can obviously see them when Amesh sends the slides. But you can see the background and the aims are kind of combined in this initial paragraph. The aims, I suppose, are this thesis aims to produce a cultural history of music and the piano in South Australia. So, and then what's this? The significance. This is sort of like the very brief literature review. And you can see that in this proposal, Ben didn't even use proper references. He just referred to the literature, but he then lists these books in his list of references at the end. So you can use footnotes or in-text referencing if you want to reference specifically, or you can just refer to the scholarship like this. It's just showing that you're familiar about what's being written on your topic. Yeah, I'm just going to say that because what he didn't use subheadings, but when I was actually going through this, I thought, well, actually you could have the subheadings of the background, aims, significance, and outcomes. If you don't want to use headings, you don't have to, and you can just use a topic sentence, which makes it clear that this paragraph or this couple of sentences is addressing this part of the project details. So like this one, this thesis aims. And with the significance, this project will offer new perspectives on South Australian history. So it's really clear what area he's covering. So that's the project details. With the research methods, you can see here how he didn't get into in-depth theoretical discussions at all with his methodology. He talks about Trove, which is a repository of sources for Australian history. And so he points out that other scholars have used it to rewrite the history of colonial music in broadly in Australia. He talks about the collections and archives that he has access to. So this is where he's going to get his research data, just to prove that, yes, it's doable. There are going to be sources for me to use. There's an online archive as well. He talks a lot about his collections. And then he says this data will be interpreted using post-colonial theory and the theory from soundscape studies. So he hasn't got into a lot of depth about how he's going to do it because he doesn't really know at this stage because he hasn't started it. So you can see how you can generally talk about what you're doing. And then this is just the reference list, which I confess I didn't double check to see whether everything he mentions in the preceding significance is cited here. I'm fairly sure it is. The one thing I would say is you might not refer to all the literature in that paragraph that you write, but there might be a couple of things that you haven't referred to, but you want to show that you're aware that they exist. You can put them under the references. We just don't want 3 pages of references that you haven't referred to. So just make sure it's a a bite-sized reference list that's easily digestible. So are there any questions about that research proposal? Yes?
Is there an evidence for you, this is free?
Well, I mean, you can, as long as you probably don't need to. I mean, as I say, it's probably, you can put a couple of things in there, but just we're not actually that interested at this stage. It's really so that we know that you're aware of the key things in the key literature in your field. You can add it. Oh, okay. Yes. So depending on your topic, yeah, okay, that does sound reasonable. I mean, you might even, yeah, you might refer to that planned reading with your in your methodology section. You can say that, you know, you've read some of the things, but obviously you know, there's going to be a lot more, and you've added the key, you know, things that you're going to look at in the planned reading. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, really, you can do what you like. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You just need to provide enough information so that the person assessing it can actually work out whether it's a viable project. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I am going to hand you over to Grace before you actually then have to come back and listen to me again. But I just wanted to introduce Grace. Grace is obviously a postgraduate student in history, because I'm Grace's supervisor. I twisted her arm to come along. But she's also a very successful ABLE HDR student. Grace recently competed in the university's 3-minute thesis competition, and she was a faculty winner. There were 3 faculty winners, and then they all went through to the university final, and Grace was the runner-up in the university final. Yeah, she was picked at the post.
The other guy was saving babies ones, so I think that
Yeah, so I won't tell you what her thesis is about, because, well, you can see the title is there, but she will tell you a bit more about it without me explaining. Yes, and so I'm just going to, I won't be distracting, but I'm just going to take, everybody's probably flagging a bit now, so I'm going to bring a basket of chocolates around for people to have some substance.
cool. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, so as you can see, my topic is Henrician fashion diplomacy, which is exactly what it sounds like. I'm looking at how fashion functioned within diplomatic practices during Henry VIII's reign. So that is about 1509 to 1547. How I came to do a PhD, well, it was quite a natural progression for me. Arts wasn't my first degree. I did a Bachelor of Commerce when I first left school, and then I was in industry for a while, and I was like, I hate this. This is so bad. I have to go back and do something that I love. So I came back and did history. So I only had to do a diploma. So I just did a major in history, which was great. And because I loved medieval and Renaissance history, I did all of Claire's courses. And then so it was really natural when it came time to do honours. I went into that, which I'm sure is the case for many of you now as well. Then the next natural step is going into postgrad, PhD, or an MPhil. And again, for me, I was with Claire through my undergrad, then through honours, and now in my PhD. So that worked out really nicely for me. Memories from applying. Well, I remember all the jargon being really confusing and overwhelming in the application. I didn't know what the research training stipend meant, like your ORCID ID. I didn't know what any of that was. So just ask questions. If you don't understand something, other people probably don't understand it, as well. So ask the questions, ask anyone. They're always happy to help. I think that's been the theme of today as well. Just ask, ask, ask. It's definitely nothing's a stupid question, I promise. Proposal tips. Well, I turned my honours thesis into my PhD. So the proposal was it wasn't like easy, but I could just I knew where the literature already sat and what I wanted to do. So I just built on that in my proposal. When I did a proposal, I had a quick look at it this morning. We did have to do a big literature review and everything. So all of that I could lift out of my honours thesis, which was awesome. I think that like two main things for your proposal, which you want to highlight, which Claire said as well, is how you're going to contribute to current scholarship. So where your research is going to fit if it fills a gap in knowledge for a PhD particularly. And then second, how that's, you know, contributing more broadly. So my research, for example, is looking at fashion diplomacy during Henry VIII's reign. So when I was doing my honours thesis, I knew I wanted to look at Henry VIII and diplomacy, but I wasn't quite sure what. So I was looking around, looking at the literature, and then I realised no one had looked at dress specifically. So then that's how I came across that. So that's a really, you know, specific title, like all PhDs are, really specific theme. But then more broadly, the significance of that is that it contributes to scholarship on early modern diplomacy, the Tudors more broadly, Renaissance fashion more broadly. So that's sort of, those are outcomes as well, I think, Claire, that you could, put. So that was that. But also just do the best you can, because I had no idea what I was doing. So I just listened to Claire. So actually, the best tip is to just listen to what your supervisor says and just do what they say. I still don't know what I'm doing. I still just do everything Claire tells me to. That's all you have to do. I'll start with worst moment, obviously COVID. I started my PhD in 2019, was supposed to do research in 2020 in London in the National Archive, but that all got canned. So I had to rely entirely on online sources for my PhD, which I'm lucky that Henry VIII is such a popular monarch. A lot of his documents related to his reign have been digitized. So that was really good. And then I could pay for manuscripts that hadn't been digitized that I needed to be digitized or sent to me, just photographed and sent to me. So there were ways around it, but that was annoying. And I couldn't see my family for a whole year because they were in Perth. So that was like really heavy and it was hard to do any work. That was probably the worst thing. Best moments. I have so many best moments. Everything is good about, like, it's the right decision to do a PhD or an MPhil, good decision. On a day-to-day, I get to just sit on my computer and look at documents from Henry VIII's reign and write about it. And that is just so much fun for me. But then also coming into uni and talking to other people in the faculty, it's such a privilege to be amongst like-minded people every day. And, you know, you're just in the lunchroom chatting about your research or chatting about broader issues. And it's really, really, it's a privilege, as I said. I mean, the friendships that you make, of course, that's really cliche, but it's absolutely true. I love teaching in the courses that I did when I was an undergrad. That is so surreal and special to be able to do that and talk to students about those topics. The two real highlights came over the last month or so. The first was I got to go to Florence for a conference with my colleague Megan, and that was so cool. It was the first time we'd been overseas since COVID. So we went to Florence. I did exchange in Florence when I was younger, so I was so happy to go back there, being at the conference, talking to other historians from all over the world, these like super highly intelligent people. I was telling them about my research, that, you know, they're talking about their research. That was just a really cool moment. And the university helped fund that as well. So that was very helpful and very cool. And then the second one was I got to go to the UK shortly after that. It was a personal trip, but I managed to get in a trip to the Royal Armouries in Leeds, where I got to see Henry VIII's horned helmet, which is pictured there. And that I've been researching this thing for like years now. But I'd never seen it in real life because of COVID. So I got to go and see it. That was what I was talking about. This piece was what I was talking about at the conference in Florence. So to go and see that, the curators took me behind the scenes. They'd taken it off display for me, which was super special because it's only ever been off display twice in its whole life. So we were all excited. We're standing in a room for about an hour and a half with two curators, and we were just chatting, throwing ideas, talking about it, trying to, you know, figure out its significance. So that was like a real highlight. And I was like, oh, I really picked the right career. This is a good move. I absolutely loved it. So yeah, they're definitely the highlights. Sorry, that's like babbling a little bit, but you get a lot of cool opportunities from doing higher degree research as well, like the 3-minute thesis I haven't even spoken about. That was really cool. But yeah, you love it. It's the right decision. And like, good luck with your proposals. As I said, just do the absolute best you can and listen to your supervisors. That's the best advice, I think.
Thank you very much, Grace. Does anybody have any questions for Grace? No, I think you spoke very confidently.
Yeah, like that. Everyone.
So yeah, so the highlight of Grace's trip to the Royal Armouries to me was I woke up, I think it was a Saturday morning, I was lying in bed and my phone pinged and Grace sent me this photograph. And it was like, oh my God, you're touching it, Grace, because we thought it was going to be on display behind glass and she wouldn't be able to get close to it. So we're having this excited messenger exchange.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you get to go abroad for the research?
Oh, I mean, probably once.
With the university paying?
They reimbursed flights, accommodation and a conference
Yeah.
fee. So I went abroad for the conference to Florence because that was a personal trip. But yeah, I applied for funding afterwards, which you're not supposed to do, but it was all good. That was COVID.
Yeah. So what there are various sort of schemes. There are various ways that you can apply to go overseas to collect research data or to present at a conference like Grace did. There's actually a graduate school, what's it called? Is it called the Travel Scholarship, Travel Award? Is that? Yeah, I mean, there are a few, but I think the one that's, so there are a few. So if you look, when you're planning to go on your research trip, if you have a look at the, well in advance, because there are closing dates for them at the website. In fact, I would be doing it over the first 12 months of your candidature just to get a sense of when the closing dates are, because they're usually about the same time every year. So you can apply for one of those and that's usually up to about $3,000, depending on the scholarship, which will more or less cover, hopefully, your airfare. But also within each school, there is research support money. Now, it varies from school to school how much money is available because the costs of research in different areas sort of varies. But usually each year you'll see a call for applications for research support, from your school, and you can apply for funding that way too. And often if you've got to go on a big research trip, it's often good to get money, from the graduate school scholarship, for your airfare, and then you can use the funding from your school to help you with your accommodation and data collection, conference registration fees, or whatever it is. But usually the school scheme, although it's offered every year, or sometimes there are a couple of calls for papers, or there will be, it's all very new at the moment, you'll usually in your school only get one big funded trip. So don't think that every year you're going to be able to go to a conference, but you might be able to get a small amount of money for something else to do with your research, or maybe if you're just going to a minor sort of little conference in Australia and you're not asking for lots of money. So keep an eye open, and your postgraduate coordinator, your supervisor, and your AMESHA will constantly be sending out emails about all kinds of things that you need to be aware of as well. So we keep in touch with you fairly regularly during candidature. I mean, a lot of people get fed up with all the emails we send out, but it's always helpful to read them because they do often contain really helpful information about how you can get your hands on some money to support your research. So you don't have to fund all of your research by yourself. And if you're in the business school and you need money, often they apply for money for their interviews and their data and their number crunching, etc. So it's not just for travel and conferences. You can actually get some research support depending on the nature of your research. But they're all things that you can look into once you've got through this application process and you've enrolled. Yeah. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, Grace?
No.
No. Okay.
How about if there's any specific
any specific referencing style that the university follows? I would just follow the style used in your discipline. So the university uses a whole range of styles, and it's usually discipline specific. So for example, in history, we normally use Chicago footnotes, but in social sciences, it's Chicago or Harvard in text referencing. And I know that in a lot of the business school and in economics, they do that referencing as well. So if you're unsure what referencing system you should be using, talk to your principal supervisor, But again, you're not going to have your application knocked back because you've used the wrong referencing system. Well, I hope not anyway. I wouldn't have thought so. Yeah, you can reference. And then obviously, obviously if you've done an undergraduate degree, you know what referencing system you've been using in that discipline that you've been working in and you want to apply for your scholarship in. So I would be just using what you're familiar with. Okay, so just before we conclude, there are just some helpful websites and contact email addresses on this slide. I'm not going to go through them all one by one. You'll be able to see them when Amesha sends the slides out. But if you want to ask specific questions about scholarships or finding a supervisor or applications, these are the research school addresses. If you want to query anything that I've said, or there's something that you think I might be able to answer that your supervisor, proposed principal supervisor can't answer, that's my email address. Just remember the I in the middle of it. If you want to actually front up to the research school, you can go up to level 10 of the Schultz building. There's an amazing view from that level 10 in Schultz, so I recommend you go there at some point in time. Far better than any other view, I think. Then there are links to the scholarships website, which I'm sure you've probably already looked at. You've definitely been on the research school website. And then you might want to look, if you're a bit unsure about supervisors, you might want to look at the ABLE research page, because you can find individual researchers there. But as I said, you probably won't be doing that because most of you will know who you want to supervise your research. So are there any final questions? Is there anything we've not covered that you're concerned about or have queries about?
Just to clarify with these scholarships, for the University of Adelaide Research Scholarship Margaret Forsby, I'm pretty sure I'd be classed as no honours because I've taken honours in my current degree, but I have 2 previous honours degrees, so it's still classed as no honours. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, but yeah, it's complicated, isn't it? So, but you don't have honours in the area that you're planning to.
No.
But which, well, the honours from the previous degree,
I think it usually counts.
it does. Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, because if you've done honours, you have research experience.
Yeah, that's why my
Yeah,
supervisors were like, my supervisor was like, yes, no worries, and my head of department was like, yes, we reckon you can get the
Yeah.
masters, because no point doing third bloody honours degree. Like, oh, but then with the scholarships,
Yeah. No, that will.
we thought about my supervisors aren't available for PhD yet. They are for masters, and we thought it's a good little segue just to get in there, and then maybe I do well, I think. So,
Yeah. Actually, that's the other thing that I wanted to say. I can't remember whether we've covered this or not, but you know, on the in the system when Lainey was showing you, it said, you know, what are you going to apply for? And I think you had put PhD and MPhil. If you're not sure what degree you want to do, or if you're not sure what your honours result is going to be, put both of them. Some areas will only accept people into the PhD if you've got first class honours, and if you don't get first class honours, you will have to start doing an MPhil rather than a PhD. So apply for both of them, and then you can always, I hope I'm right about this, Lainey, but if someone applies to do the PhD and actually gets first class honours, they can still say that they actually want to do the MPhil, can't they? Yeah. So you put them both down, and then that gives you that flexibility as well. So I was going to say that, and then there was something else in response to what you were saying, but now I can't. Something to do with I can't remember. If I remember, I'll let Amesha know and she can send it out in the email. I don't think it was important. I can't remember it now. Well, thank you all very much for giving up a couple of hours of your day when I know a lot of you have probably just submitted your honours theses and are probably feeling brain dead. Some of you might be in the middle of your coursework at the moment and still trying to finish essays. So I hope that you found it useful. But if you've got any further questions when you're going through the form, as Lenny said, there's the help on the screen, but if that doesn't help you, just send an email to one of the email addresses that we've given you today. Good luck, and I hope to see you all in a few months' time in the induction for new postgraduates, which we'll be holding probably in March next year. Okay, so good luck. Okay, there was nothing more on Zoom. No. Okay, thanks everybody.